Last episode of the Dr. Phil podcast. A high school senior in New York, Sabrina, was told she couldn't paint a Bible verse on her own parking spot. Now, this was a tradition at the school. They had a senior day, and seniors had assigned parking spots, and they could do whatever they wanted. They could, as long as it wasn't, something horrible or offensive or whatever, they could paint and decorate their parking spot. And this story stirred something in me because, as you know, freedom of religion is at the very heart of the First Amendment. Just months later in Colorado, almost the identical thing happened to another student. Another case about a young woman's right to express her faith, another legal battle, and another moment for all of us to ask, where are we drawing the line between protecting religious identity and outright censorship? We're going to dig into both stories, hear from Sabrina herself, and talk with her senior counsel for First Liberty, Keisha Russell, about what these cases mean for students, parents, and schools across America. I'm not suggesting that we paint all parking lots with psalms. I'm saying if someone wants to share their love for the divine, they have every right to do so, and you have the right to ignore that if you want. That's called free expression. That's called free speech. That's called freedom. This is called America, and that's the real story. There's a school in Colorado Springs, Rampart High School, and there's a senior there named Sophia who wanted to decorate her parking spot to reflect her space. And surprise, surprise, the school rejected her design for being religious, and it sparked a legal fight that changed district policy and restored students' right to express their beliefs. Thank you so much for joining us, Sophia. I really appreciate you being here and talking about this. When this all started, were you surprised that there was pushback?
Yeah, I was honestly really surprised because Rampart is really a very inclusive school. And so for them to not have the same rules as every other school in the district, it was just honestly really surprising.
Yeah. So how do they describe the tradition at your school regarding senior parking spots? What is the tradition?
Yeah, the tradition is if you drive a car to school and you want to pay for a parking spot and you're a senior, you get to express yourself on the parking spot, and that is your spot that you park in every single day.
Okay. And you're quite artistic, so you designed something that was unique. And what was your first design?
My original design was to paint the parable in Luke 15 of the shepherd and the 99 sheep with a Bible verse of 1 Corinthians 13:4.
Okay. And we're looking at it right now, and really creative, by the way, amazing. How did you come up with this?
The parable of Luke 15 was just a Bible verse and a story that was very near and dear to my heart. It's gotten me through a lot of struggles and stuff like that. And yeah, I just wanted to represent something that follows along with my life story on my parking space.
Yeah. And did they pick something out about the design or anything that was offensive to somebody? Did they think somebody's going to drive by that and go, "Oh my God, I'm traumatized"? What was it that they objected to in the beginning?
They objected to the Bible verse on it just because it does have that religious imagery on it. Yeah.
And so what's your reaction? What was your reaction when it happened?
I was honestly really upset just because I'd seen other high schools in the district being able to paint religious imagery on theirs. And I was just really upset just because Christianity is how I like to express myself. And that was kind of something I wanted to leave on my parking space. And so, yeah.
And this verse that they thought, oh, we just can't have that here, if I'm correct, it is love is patient, love is kind. That's 1 Corinthians 13:4, correct?
Yes.
Now, I'm sorry.
It's very dangerous, right?
I'm sorry. Somebody's got to really be bending over backwards to come up with some way that they're protecting others from driving through a parking lot and seeing that and like, oh my God, what in the world has gone wrong here? And I'm sorry.
It really is ridiculous because it's such an amazing scripture, but even the message that she's communicating with the picture and the imagery is amazing as well. The idea that everyone is special to God, and even if you leave, he's leaving his entire flock to come and find you. It's such an amazing, important message, and the fact that the school district thought there was something wrong with it is really abhorrent. And we have to remember, these are the people who are teaching our young people how the Constitution applies to them, even if they don't see it that way. This is the first encounter that students are going to have with the government. And if the government treats religion as if it's supposed to be banned and censored, then those students are going to grow up thinking that that's the way America's supposed to be, that that's the way the Constitution is, when in fact that's a lie. So these educators are lying to the students.
And we know that a lot of the Christian community feels kind of second class. They are slow to stand up and speak. And I've talked to so many Christian groups that tell me they just confess that. You didn't plan to fight to begin with. What changed your mind?
After seeing Sabrina's story on Fox News, I think I was really wanting to move forward with, the legal action to stand up for what was right.
Were you nervous about going up against the powers that be, the authorities at your own school? And were they punitive with you about this? Were they judgmental and harsh with you while this was going on? How did it actually play out?
A couple people were very judgmental, but I think the Lord protected me in a lot of different ways. And there was so many people that was so supporting all over social media and people I didn't know and my family. And so that was really good.
The thing I wonder about is, because as you and I were talking about, there were more cases where somebody doesn't reach out and get help, legal help, and fight back. They don't know about like First Liberty or whatever. And I'm going to ask Sophia in a minute what it would have meant to her if this school hadn't changed their mind and reversed their position. We're going to talk about that next. We'll be right back. If you've been told you have type 2 diabetes, chances are you were also told this is something you're just going to have to manage for the rest of your life. Take this medication, then add another one, and eventually another. Because once type 2 diabetes starts, it often leads to more and more health issues. But here's the truth. You're not getting the whole story. I've been learning more about type 2 diabetes and how it actually develops and why. For many people, it can be reversed, not just managed, not just medicated, but addressed at the root. That's why I want you to know about Diabetes Reversal Group. This team, led by Dr. Jeffrey Hawkins, has the only patented system in the world that actually reverses type 2 diabetes. If you're serious about changing your future, learn more about reversing diabetes at drphildiabetes.com. That's drphildiabetes.com. Senior counsel for First Liberty Institute, Keisha Russell, says denying students the right to express and live out their faith harms both their development and weakens the Constitution itself. And she joins us to share what parents can do when their school crosses the line. And I'm going to let her tell us about that in just a minute. Sophia, what would it have meant to you if they hadn't changed their mind, if they hadn't moved their position on this?
I really think that it would just make Christians feel like they're hiding their faith in some type of way, or other religions too, and they can't express themselves at school the way they want to and the way that everybody else can.
Charlie Kirk stood up for this sort of thing and fought back and pushed back a lot. And he was an inspiration to you, is that right?
Yeah.
When he was assassinated, and clearly in trying to silence him, how did you process that? What did that mean to you?
I just feel like, I don't even know. Like, Charlie Kirk was such a big inspiration on so many of the younger religious people. And I think after that happened, it was kind of like a movement for all people, and they kind of started talking and being more outgoing with their faith and stuff like that.
You've now been in a fight for free speech. You've been in a fight for religious liberty. Has that changed you?
Oh, definitely. I feel like I'm not scared anymore of speaking what I believe in and what people are saying about me and stuff like that. All I know is I need to honor God, and this, I feel like, was honoring God.
Do you think you can make a difference and are making a difference?
Yeah, I do think so. I think I'm inspiring, and Sabrina was inspiring a whole bunch of younger religious people to stand up for what they believe in.
Do you think you've done what Charlie would have wanted you to do?
Hopefully, I mean, I look up to Charlie Kirk so much. Like, I used to watch him all the time, and I think honestly, he was the main reason that I wanted to speak out about this and speak about how it's wrong.
Well, I knew Charlie, I considered him a friend, and I can tell you he would definitely have stood up and applauded you standing up and fighting for your religious liberty. And I can tell you he would have been really proud of what you're doing, what you've done, and what you achieved. And, you know, there are a lot of people watching this right now, Keisha, and a lot are frustrated. They feel powerless. They feel helpless. They feel in a David and Goliath situation when you're facing a school board, a school district. What's your advice to those people that feel powerless? Let's be honest, the math just isn't adding up lately. Between the grocery store and those skyrocketing insurance premiums, even with steady jobs, more families are relying on high-interest credit cards to cover expenses. If you're a homeowner stuck in that cycle, carrying balances with rates in the 20s or even 30s, it's time to get relief. Right now, mortgage rates are at a 3-year low, and my friends at American Financing are helping homeowners pay off that high interest rate debt at rates in the low 5s. Their salary-based mortgage consultants don't just push loans, they build exit strategies from debt. On average, they're saving their customers $800 a month. Plus, if you start today, you may even delay the next 2 mortgage payments. There are no upfront fees or obligations. To find out how much you can save, America's home for home loans is American Financing. 888-841-1319. That's 888-841-1319 or americanfinancing.net/Phil. There are a lot of people watching this right now, Keisha, and a lot are frustrated. They feel powerless. They feel helpless. They feel in a David and Goliath situation when you're facing a school board, a school district. What's your advice to those people that feel powerless?
Well, they're definitely not powerless, and they're not alone. I think parents and students, sometimes they think they're the only ones. They're by themselves, and they're not. That's why First Liberty is here. But also, there are millions of people who are religious in this country and who are going to appreciate you standing up for yourself. You know, my advice really is for parents, is to, communicate with the school in writing so that you have everything that they are saying to you on paper, because I hate to say, but sometimes people will lie about what has taken place. And you want, all the guidelines that they're referencing, and you can always contact First Liberty to ask us even questions. I would say about half the people I talk to, I'm just answering questions for them, and letting them know, no, you're doing the right thing, you're on the right track, keep going. And a lot of those, cases don't necessarily turn into litigation matters, but we encourage a lot of people to stand up for themselves, and a lot of those people end up winning because they push back based on, the advice that we give them and the cases that they've seen from us.
It is important to get it in writing because, as you and I were talking, a lot of times they'll say, well, our policy is A, B, and C. You ask for a policy or you get a policy manual, there's no policy in there like that at all. And if they've told you that there is, then you need to get that in writing. You need to get in writing that they have misrepresented to you something that is just simply a lie. They've just told you something that's not true.
Right, and you also want to get in the facts sort of solidified in writing too, so that you can get their response. And if things go forward, if a law firm has to write a demand letter or there is litigation, there's a paper trail. Because, like I've said, oftentimes in a number of cases I've worked in, unfortunately, all school districts where you get to the point where you're trying to negotiate or settle, and they're saying, well, that didn't exactly happen the way they say it happened.
Yeah.
So it is important to get everything documented and write everything down so that if a lawyer enters the picture, they know exactly what's going on and the school district can't wiggle out of what they've told you.
Sophia, in your situation, the school announced plans to update district-wide guidelines to permit religious themes on all senior parking spaces. So this had a ripple effect. It started just with you and your space, but they announced plans to change things district-wide. So it's already spreading, right?
Yeah, and I hope it continues to spread. I hope I inspired a bunch of other kids who are going through the same thing across the nation, and they get to stand up for what they believe in, and hopefully this is a nationwide change.
Yeah, and if people realize that just, their own individual case, it does, people do look at it and say, you know what, we got to start making some changes here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, some school districts and some people are just going to be stubborn. It doesn't matter what the law is. They feel like the law should be something that it isn't. And sometimes people are going to push back. But for the most part, you're going to get a lot of school districts that are going to learn from what has happened because they're going to see sort of the fallout. Coach Kennedy's case, the ones that actually go to litigation, you've got districts paying millions of dollars for violating someone's constitutional rights. Those are the kinds of things that, stick in people's minds when they're leaders in a school district. And I think even a case that seems small, like Sabrina's and Sophia's, that shows the school district there is a way to fix these problems before it costs you millions of dollars in legal fees.
We've mentioned Coach Kennedy's case a time or two. Give us the quick summary of that case, nuts and bolts of that case.
Yeah, so Coach Joe Kennedy was a high school football coach in Bremerton, Washington. At the end of, he coached high school football. At the end of every game, he would go to the 50-yard line, say a quick silent prayer to thank God for changing his life. He had a pretty rough life. And he was grateful for what he was doing. And then the school district told him he couldn't do that anymore, primarily because it was in the view of students and they could see him. And they said that was an Establishment Clause violation. And so those are the facts there. We lost that case a couple times in the Ninth Circuit, which is where California sits, and tends to be pretty liberal in terms of the decisions that come out of that district. And so we ended up having to go to the Supreme Court. We went twice. The second time is when we won, and Coach Kennedy's rights were vindicated. And the Supreme Court essentially said, what actually applies to Sabrina's case is that we not only have the freedom to believe, but we have the freedom to exercise our religion in public, in our actions, every single day. It's not something we have to hide or only confine to a church or only confine to our home. And so those are really important principles that not only apply to Coach Kennedy as an employee of a public school district, but they also apply to all the students as well.
Yeah, really big finding. President Trump takes this very seriously, religious liberty in America, and he created a presidential commission for religious liberty, and I'm very honored to have been asked to serve on that commission, and I'm doing so. And Keisha is very supportive of this, and you've been there to the commission. And we talk about this fight for religious liberty. And let me tell you something, the worst thing we can do is get lax about this, right? We can't
Absolutely.
take this for granted.
We have to fight back, because if we've learned anything from history is that, people in power, authority almost always wants to pull those things back. And so the Constitution is a great marker for us to know, look, the government's taking way more power than they're supposed to. There are things that are God-given rights, like the freedom of religion, the freedom to live out your conscience, the freedom to speak, the freedom to assemble. All of those things you listed earlier are things that we have to continue to fight for. If we don't fight for them, we will lose them.
Yeah, and when we see these courageous young women like Sabrina and Sophia that stand up and push back and fight back, that needs to inspire all of us. When we see these young people that have this conviction, and we talk about the young generation and we say, they've lost their way and all, and then we see these guiding lights like Sabrina and Sophia, I am definitely inspired. And I want to thank Keisha Russell from First Liberty Institute and Sabrina and Sophia for being here and talking about this. Tonight we saw what happens when two young women decide to stand up for what they believe in. And courage like that keeps our freedoms alive. I mean, it absolutely does. And we need to hear that and find our way to stand up and make sure that we're claiming our rights. And you got to name it to claim it. You got to know what is important to you and stand up for that and not let those erode or be taken away from you. It is a call to action. Thank you for being here tonight. So long. If you like what you hear, watch me every day on my new network, Envoy TV. Check out the links in the description for more ways to enjoy Envoy TV.